good afternoon, morning still. It's wonderful to see everyone back here for a second day. We had a really exciting first day, and this past session was absolutely amazing. I want to thank all of our speakers for the really open and honest conversation that we don't always have here at our meetings. Our next speaker is Harris Sondak. Harris is a professor of leadership and business ethics at UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business and the University of Utah's David Eccles School of Business, where his work focuses on how individuals, teams, and organizations create value, especially under conditions of uncertainty. But Harris doesn't come to this conversation only as a scholar. He also comes as a grateful patient. 3 years ago, he was seriously injured in an accident that required complex spine surgery. What followed was not just a physical repair, but a lived lesson in resilience, trust, and the power of coordinated care. That experience now shapes how Harris understands leadership and collective performance. In his remarks today, he connects the work you all do every day in the operating room with the broader work of helping people and systems recover, adapt, and reach higher together. He invites us to see repair not simply as a return to what was, but as an opportunity to discover what becomes possible when skill, humility, and shared purpose come together. Please join me in welcoming Harris Sondak.
Thank you, Dr. Bisson. I come here today both as a grateful patient and as someone who has studied leadership, and I want to share a lens on leadership, on repair, resilience, and reaching higher together. That's me. On the right, after I was injured in the surf in Zihuatanejo, Mexico, just before New Year's in 2002, and on the left, after my spine was repaired by Dr. Bisson and her team at the University of Utah. As a patient, as a scholar who studies leadership, I want to share something that's obvious but also profound, something that I think you probably already know but may not have put into these terms. Like other forms of expertise, medicine has technical skills, but that's not the whole story. Medicine facilitates repair in a human context, and you need to work with the people in that context, not just as patients, but as people, and this also goes to your teams as well. So we're not just talking about structural repair, we're talking about lived experience. Now, the context that you work in requires a kind of leadership. And as leaders, you can set expectations for your team and for your patients about what it is that you're offering to them, about how that care is offered. Through coordination with your team and with those expectations of the patients, you're going to create coherence for yourselves, for your team members, and for the people you're caring for. To make recovery real for your patients, you need to think through what it is for them to live through this experience. This is a picture of my hand and my daughter after the surgery. In addition to being a faculty member at the University of Utah and at Berkeley, I was the mayor of the town of Alta, a ski resort town in Utah. And this is a picture of a howitzer, a 105 howitzer that was used for avalanche control. Alta is often cut off from the rest of the world because of avalanches that close our road and create a high level of danger in our community. Your team needs to coordinate like this team had to coordinate in controlling the avalanches. Alta is where avalanche control was pioneered in mountain towns. This team has to assemble the ammunition safely. They have to load the gun safely. They have to fire the gun safely for the crew, but also for the town, because if they fire it incorrectly at the wrong time, you can wipe out, actually, some of our hotels. The road does frequently get avalanched across, and I want to tell you about a story of a time when this happened. It was at night, it was still snowing. A helicopter was not available to bring a patient in one of our hotels who had suffered an MI. What we had to do was coordinate our team, including our police, our ski patrol, and the adjoining ski area of Snowbird, who lent us a snowcat to go across this slide while it was still snowing and they were at risk, to take this patient to the other side of the slide where the ambulance from the Unified Fire Authority could take them to the university hospital. Often you're managing in situations of uncertainty that are evolving and that have high and serious consequences. That's what this experience was like. Now, we succeeded because we were aligned on understanding what our purpose and our goals were, and everybody who was involved was bought into those goals and understood what we were trying to do. And they communicated very effectively. They believed in and were committed to our purpose. That's not always the case in these kinds of contexts. Business schools often, like many organizations, we care about the metrics. Metrics tell you what you should care about, but sometimes they focus your attention too narrowly. So I want to tell you two examples of the undermining of purpose and shared goals by too narrow of a focus, instead of thinking about the experience of the team members, the systems in which they're embedded, and your role as leaders. The first of these examples was when I was a department chair and I was getting pressure from my dean, and I'm guessing that this will be familiar to a number of you, to increase our rankings. And I asked the dean, why do we care so much about rankings? And he said, we care about rankings because they bring us resources. So then I asked him, what are we going to do with the resources? And although he didn't put it quite in these terms, the answer amounted to, well, resources help us increase our rankings. So that kind of circularity obscures the purpose of what it is that we're trying to do together. And the second example was I was at a previous appointment at a rather prestigious university, and our business school was always ranked, well, I'll say lower than Berkeley's as a matter of fact, but it was always ranked 12th, 13th, 14th. And one year, we were ranked 10th in this U.S. News report. And the marketing team and the dean made a big deal out of being a top 10 business school. Well, guess what happened? Reversion to the mean. The next year, we were ranked 13th. And so at the faculty lunches, we cynically joked that we were one of the 15 top 10 business schools. And that also undermines a sense of shared purpose in meeting, when you don't actually believe in the message that your leaders are promulgating. Now, we can do better than that. And we can do better than that through a model that in business schools we call procedural fairness. And what that model boils down to is giving people standing, letting them know that they matter, And you do that by treating them respectfully and asking their opinions, giving them voice. You want to convey neutrality in your decision-making. You're not biased for or against individuals because of either their demographics or because of your personal relationships. You make decisions based on facts. And third, you foster trust by telling the truth and by sincere concern for the welfare of the individuals who you're leading. And you probably are familiar with some of the work by Amy Edmondson on psychological safety. And you may not know that her original studies at Harvard were done with surgical teams. And the results of her investigation show that surgical teams perform better in medical terms, not just in the human terms of the experience of the team members and the patients, but even in medical terms, if the people feel psychologically safe. And what that allows them to do is to voice their opinion, feel trusted, trust you, and know that you're making the decisions based on the real facts. The other thing that this kind of procedural fairness does, besides helping individuals, and Amy Edmondson's work shows this too, is that it helps you coordinate systems, because these activities are going to be embedded in a system. After I was injured in Mexico, I went to the ER, and despite the way that that first x-ray looked, the ER doc said, "You have no fractures." And I had already had a professional relationship with Dr. Bisson's PA, Sarah McAvoy. And so I wrote to her, and it was December 30th, my vacation. I wasn't sure I was going to get an answer. And I emailed her and said, "I got injured in the surf. ER doc says I have no fractures. My left arm is really sore, and my fingers are numb. And maybe I herniated a disc." And that was just a guess on my part. And she wrote back, to my surprise, actually, right away, and said, "Well, maybe that's what happened to you, but you need to get a MRI." And when I told her I wasn't going to be able to get that here in Zihuatanejo, she said, "Come home." And in retrospect, it was a rather harrowing flight, first from there right to here in Phoenix, and then from Phoenix to Salt Lake City, arriving in a snowstorm where my daughter picked me up in the snowstorm and took me to the ER at midnight. It was the next day by then. And I walked into the ER, and I said something that I don't think happens very often in an emergency room, and I said, "I think I have an appointment." And it was because Sarah had coordinated this whole situation. And I walked in there, and they were expecting me. I think that it must be the case that Sarah felt empowered to manage this system this way. So effective leaders shape systems by articulating shared goals, guiding decision-making, and aligning incentives. And I want to tell you about the way that this gets done at the Haas School of Business, because I'm inspired by it. It led to my wanting to be one of the major reasons why I wanted to be at the Haas School. And they call them their defining leadership principles. And they developed this about 10 years ago. There are 4 defining leadership principles: questioning the status quo. This fosters innovation. They want people to speak up. Confidence without attitude. They want people to have a sense of, I understand the evidence, I can do the analysis, but I have some epistemological humility. I know I don't know everything. Students always, because I know I don't know everything, I continue to want to learn. One of the goals in all of our classes is to foster the curiosity of our students. And third, beyond yourself, the Haas School prides itself on one, fostering social mobility, and two, graduating students who are going to, as they like to say, make the world a better place. So we've worked hard on this set of principles, and it's not just talked about at the Haas School. We actually have put it into practice. So these principles matter for who we recruit as students, as faculty. They matter for what we teach in our various programs. We align the incentives. My teaching evaluation that the students fill out, for example, always ask, how well was this course informed by the DLPs, and how well did it foster your understanding of how to apply the DLPs? And the leaders of the school really care about this. 10 years ago, it was a professor colleague of mine, Jennifer Chapman, who was an expert on aligning culture and systems for strategic advantage in organizations and for strategic effectiveness. She is now the dean of the Haas School. And the person who was the dean at the time that these were created is now the chancellor of the University of California at Berkeley. So these innovations in the culture of the business school have led to the promotion of these people in their careers, and now they're in the position to promote other people who are enacting these principles of working well together for the common good. They also have been set in stone. After they were adopted by the faculty, the school paid to have them engraved in the buildings in brass lettering. It's going to be very difficult to get rid of these now. And they aren't only there to be seen, they're there to be walked on and lived. They were also set in brass lettering in the courtyard amongst the buildings of the business school where people gather. And being California, there's a lot of you can spend a lot of time outside, and this is a gathering space for faculty, for students, and for staff. And every day you're walking past the DLPs to be reminded of them. So as you're all familiar, spine surgery restores structure. But recovery occurs not just structurally, not just technically, but in the lived experience of your patients. And leaders must do the same. They must manage the structure of their teams and their organizations. They have to enable good experience on the part of the people who are working for them and on the part of the people who are coming to you as patients. In business schools, we call them customers, although I like to call them students. And for me, recovery brought me in touch with the reasons to be grateful, not just to Dr. Bisson and her team and the university hospital that facilitated her care for me, but also more generally, that accident, as I understood from my care team, could have led to my being quadriplegic or dead, and it didn't. And now I feel like I have a bonus of being able to spend more years with my family and more years teaching and more years doing things like I'm doing right now. So recovery has brought me with reasons to be grateful, to be more mindful, and it's helped me to focus on what really matters. And as you all know, not only through your surgical skill, but through your patient care and your facilitation of your teams, life goes on, and in many cases, even improved. And I feel like my experience as a patient dovetail with my experience as someone who's thought about these issues in organizations and leadership has really made a big difference in my life. And so I very much appreciate the work that you all do, and I especially appreciate the work that Dr. Bisson and is Sarah here? I thought she might be here at this conference, but that Sarah and that team continues to do for me. So thank you.